Time to get the Apache started. Let's go! Quickly, before we start, there are a couple of keybinds we need to cover, first being the cursor enter D press, which you can bind to any simple push button, and make sure to remember this one for later. Next is a more optional bind, but you can bind the movement of the power levers to either a forward and aft switch, or an axis if you have any of those spare. If you don't, you can also do it with the mouse, so don't worry about it. Now let's get started. To make it easier to see things, let's get rid of the monocle by pressing I on the keyboard. There we go. And now the very first step will be to set the master ignition switch to the battery position. Next, uncover the APU button and click on it to start the APU, and we can close the door. You will hear the APU starting, and on your upfront display it will also say APU start. Once the APU is done starting up, it will say APU on, and on the APU button itself it will also say on. Now let's get the SAI uncaged by rolling it downwards and then back up to the horizon, and going back to the engine panel, right click on the number 1 engine start switch. Now if we look at the engine indicators, you will see NG percentage going up, and as soon as it shows a positive value, you can press right Alt and Home on your keyboard to raise the left power lever. Once raised, all the engine parameters will start going up, and the rotors will start spinning like so. While it's starting, we can go to the far back left side and turn on the external lights. For daytime I usually go bright, formation lights off and white. For the night you can go dim, red, and formation lights on. Obviously you want everything off when entering combat. For internal lights you can do whatever you want with the flood and the standby instrument lights, but for the primary lights you're gonna need it on, and I'll explain why later on in the startup. For the signal light, just leave it on as it is by default. Once the engine is done starting up, it will stabilize just below 67% NG, usually around 66.6, 66.7, and that tells you that you can start up the next engine by again right clicking on the engine number 2 start switch this time. Again, the NG percentage of the second engine will start rising, and as soon as it shows a positive value, you can raise the right throttle lever with right shift and home, like so. Now both engines are starting. In the meantime, let's turn on CMOS, and I like to switch all of those switches to the up position, but you can do as you wish. From there, if we go to the COM or audio panel, set all the squelch switches to on. That will ensure less static when you hear stuff on the radio. Now when both engines stabilize just below 67% NG, you can start raising them to the fly position. You can do it with the mouse, just dragging each of them up, or you can just bind it to a simple push button. You can do a forward and aft to move both of them smoothly, or you can do what I did and set it to some axis. Whichever way you choose to do it, just make sure you're doing it smoothly and slowly. I'm gonna advance it like that. Don't rush it, let it catch up with your movement, and all the way up to fly. Now you can see that all the engine parameters went up, and let them stabilize, and we can just keep moving with the startup. Once the engines are in the fly position, you can turn off the APU by clicking on the button again, and we can close the cover. Now we can go to the weapons page, go to the ACE menu, utility, and turn on the RLWR or radar and laser warning receiver by clicking on the button next to it. Now even though it's on, we're not yet gonna hear anything from it, so make sure to increase its volume right here all the way up. Now let's get out of the ACE menu, go to bore site, select IADS, and you will see, just note that the cursor moved itself to the bore site now option. Now if I look up, you'll see these yellow circles right here. If you don't see them, make sure that the primary lights are set to on. Once you see the circles, bring back the monocle by pressing I on the keyboard again. And now just put all the circles in the center of that scope in front of you. Once you got it there, put the line of sight on the center yellow dot. It doesn't have to be perfect, just get it as close as you can. And when you have it there, press the cursor, enter depress. Because our cursor slewed itself to the board sight now option, that has completed the board sight process and we can get out of the board sight menu. Now let's put down the monocle again. Now let's go to the TSD page, utility, and make sure that position confidence is green. If it's still in white, just wait for the alignment to finish itself. We can get out of the utility, disengage the parking brake right here, or by just pressing on your toe brakes, like so. And now we can bring up the monocle again, slowly increase the collective, and gently lift off the ground. As with all my startups, there's a link down in the description with a checklist to help you through that process. If you ever need any further help, make sure to join my Discord link to the top right side of your screen right now. I'm always there and would love to see you all and fly with all of you. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. Let me know what you thought of this video down in the comments. I read each and every single one of them, and it's always great to connect with all of you through them. And once you're done Apaching, just make sure to land safely.